4.8% the previous year, 2018. Yet, despite this deceleration, we had fantastic returns in emerging markets fixed income. We saw somewhere between 10 and 15%.
Let us talk about something most people never admit out loud.
You want to have love you, actually do love you, you're a success. I've never seen anybody that reaches that age. I mean, I'm not talking about somebody that's in extreme poverty or pain or something.
Wealth is not just about money. It is about patterns, habits, and invisible traps that silently keep 90% of people broke their entire lives. The reality is brutal. Most people do not stay poor because they lack intelligence or talent. They stay broke because they're unknowingly caught in a system designed to keep them trapped. And until they recognize the trap, no amount of effort, hustle, or side gigs will make a lasting difference. The first trap is the paycheck mindset. Most people trade time for money, believing that working harder or longer hours will eventually solve their financial problems. But here's the harsh truth. Your income is limited by the hours in a day. No matter how skilled you are, how loyal, or how committed, the ceiling exists. And for most people, that ceiling keeps them just above survival. The problem is not working hard. It's us working within a system that punishes ambition beyond a point and rewards compliance. Then there's the lifestyle trap. This one is subtle and insidious.
When the stock is down 30% in a month, it's not going to feel so good to feel 30% dumber.
You get a raise, you buy a nicer car, you land a higher paying job, you move into a bigger apartment. Your salary goes up, but so does your spending. You feel richer, but your net worth barely changes. This is why 90% of people never build real wealth. They confuse lifestyle inflation for progress. They mistake appearances for assets. While they're busy spending every extra dollar they earn, the real wealth builders are quietly investing, letting money work for them instead of disappearing the moment it touches their hands. Debt is another silent killer. Credit cards, car loans, student loans. These are tools marketed as convenience, but for most, they're traps. Interest compounds against you, silently eroding any gains you make from your paycheck.
This is particularly important in emerging markets, is that normally your margins are too thin to have fumbles. So you have to execute impeccably in order to succeed.
People believe that buying now and paying later is freedom, but it is a chain. Every month, interest payments drain potential investments. The wealthiest understand that avoiding unnecessary debt, or at least using debt strategically, is critical to escaping the trap. The education trap is less obvious, but just as dangerous. Most people are taught to memorize, follow rules, and get good grades, not to understand money. Schools rarely teach financial literacy, investing, or wealth-building strategies. You can have a 4.0 GPA and still end up broke if you never learn how to make your money work for you. Knowledge about assets, compounding, risk, and leverage is what separates the 10% who build wealth from the 90% who never do. Then there's the instant gratification trap, the enemy of long-term wealth. We live in a culture obsessed with speed and comfort. Apps, streaming, fast food, and impulse shopping train your brain to value immediate reward over delayed benefit. Investing, entrepreneurship, skill building, or any real wealth strategy is slow, invisible, and frustrating at first. Most people quit before the process compounds. The 90% fail not because they cannot earn, but because they cannot resist the small pleasures that keep them comfortable while their financial freedom slips further away. Even the social trap plays a role. Most people surround themselves with people who think like them, spend like them, and dream small like them.
Opportunities both in terms of consumer markets in the emerging markets, export markets to the emerging markets, but also more important.
This keeps their mindset narrow and their ambitions constrained. The wealthy, on the other hand, understand that who you associate with directly influences your thinking, risk tolerance, and ability to seize opportunities. If you want to escape the 90% trap, you must be willing to step outside the social norms that keep you financially constrained. Here's where the psychology becomes almost cruel. The brain wants to stay in familiar patterns. It prefers small, immediate gains over long-term wins. That is why most side hustles fail, why most investments are abandoned, and why 90% of people quit before seeing the fruits of their labor. The trap is not always external, it is internal. Your own habits, fears, and conditioned responses work against you, silently reinforcing poverty, even when your intentions are good. But let us flip the perspective for a moment. The wealthiest 10% understand a key truth. Money is a tool, not a reward. They prioritize acquiring assets over consuming luxuries. They focus on investments, skills, and systems that grow independently of their labor. And most importantly, they embrace delayed gratification. They tolerate discomfort, uncertainty, and slow progress because they understand that wealth is exponential, not linear. The same $1 invested today does not just become $2. It grows over decades, building a foundation that most people cannot even imagine. This brings us to leverage, the force multiplier most people ignore. Leverage comes in many forms: money, skills, networks, and time.
If we're doing so well, is the average American family banging a plastic card?
Most people fail because they try to use only their time. The wealthy use leverage to multiply results beyond what their hours alone could generate. Investments earn passive income. Skills enable higher-paying opportunities. Networks open doors that no amount of effort alone could. Understanding and utilizing leverage is how the 10% escape the trap that keeps 90% financially confined. Then there's the compounding trap, or rather, the failure to recognize compounding. Most people ignore the power of starting early and being consistent. They believe that wealth is built in grand gestures or lucky breaks. The reality is simpler and far more powerful. Small, consistent investments, repeated over time, create massive outcomes. Money, knowledge, and skills all compound. But if you never start, if you quit, or if you spend what could be invested, compounding works against you. This is why the trap is so vicious. The longer you stay unaware, the harder it becomes to break free. Here's a brutal observation. Escaping the 90% trap is not about hustling harder or working more hours. It is about thinking differently, acting differently, and playing a different game. Most people play life like a short-term sprint. The wealthy play it like a marathon with compounding checkpoints. They focus on the systems that create exponential growth, not the immediate pleasures that create linear survival. And until you shift your mindset, no financial strategy will have lasting impact. Even luck is not what most think. While the wealthy often appear lucky, they're actually positioned to take advantage of opportunities because they've escaped these traps. They have knowledge, networks, assets, and habits that magnify any positive event. The poor and average often stumble into luck but fail to capitalize on it because the system, their mindset, habits, and social constraints limits their leverage. This is why breaking free requires more than just working hard. It requires strategic thinking, discipline, and foresight. Breaking the trap starts with awareness. Recognizing the paycheck mindset, the lifestyle inflation, the debt burden, the lack of financial literacy, and the short-term thinking is the first step. Once you see the pattern, you can take deliberate action. Start investing consistently. Focus on assets over consumption. Build skills, leverage networks, and cultivate patience. Each step compounds, gradually dismantling the trap that has held you back. But let us not sugarcoat it. The escape is uncomfortable. You'll have to delay gratification, make unpopular choices, and break habits that have been reinforced for years. You'll have to stand out socially, sometimes appearing frugal, unconventional, or even extreme to those around you. This is why so many never do it. The trap is not just financial, it is cultural and psychological. It requires courage to break free. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people live paycheck to paycheck, trapped in a cycle of consumption, debt, and distraction, and they accept it as normal. They see the wealthy and assume it has luck or privilege, never realizing that the wealthy understand systems, leverage, compounding, and delayed gratification in ways that the majority refuses to learn. The 90% trap is not visible. It is subtle, woven into everyday decisions, habits, and beliefs. And unless you deliberately fight it, it will control your financial life for decades. And the irony, breaking free is not complicated. It is about 3 core shifts. Change your mindset from consumer to investor. Embrace long-term thinking over instant gratification and leverage compounding in every aspect of your life. Money, skills, relationships. Treat each as a seed. Plant it, nurture it, reinvest it, and give it time. That's the blueprint the wealthy use, quietly, methodically, invisibly. And yet, the vast majority never adopt it because it is invisible, slow, and uncomfortable. At the end of the day, the 90% wealth trap is as much psychological as it is financial. It keeps people chasing distractions, buying fleeting pleasures, and believing that effort alone equals success. But effort without strategy, discipline, and foresight is wasted energy. Escaping the trap requires a new approach, a blueprint for building real lasting wealth that compounds over time. So, the next time you feel stuck, broke, or frustrated, ask yourself, am I trapped in the patterns that keep 90% of people broke? Or am I building the habits, systems, and mindset that will let me join the 10%? Because until you answer that honestly, the trap does not just exist, it tightens. Breaking it is not easy. It is uncomfortable. It demands discipline and courage. But once you do, the invisible chains fall away, and wealth, true, lasting wealth, becomes inevitable. And that, my friend, is the most powerful lesson most people never learn.